Hey folks, I've been recently enjoying a mod for Dark Souls 2 Scholar called Secret Fire 2.0, and I've been playing it enough that I decided I wanted to try to see if I could route, um, not really a speed run, but maybe the best the best way for me to enjoy the mod. And one of the things about the mods is that they typically involve uh, either replacing or introducing new weapons and armor and spells. And in this particular case, the developer also basically redesigned the way that the Dark Souls 2 Scholar world was connected. So the pathing is different now from one place to another in the mod than in the vanilla version. And also, certain bosses have been moved or even replaced. Um, and as is typical with game mods, the the stat requirements for the items in the mod are not necessarily the same as those in vanilla. So it kind of takes a while to get used to all of the changes in the mod to decide how you might want to route uh, a way to play the mod. So the first thing that I did when you first load in on the mod, there's a cheat area just before you get to the hut in betwixt where you can pick up some items that have been added to the game, like new weapons, armor, and spells and consumables. So, like, you get a whole host of powerful souls that you can use to instantly upgrade your character to a very high enough level, basically, to use whatever weapons and armor and spells you want to test out and try to learn. So I would recommend before you even worry about data mining, if you're interested in data mining and routing like I am, what I did was first I went to those cheat barrels and just stocked up on everything in the cheat barrels and started kind of playing with them to try to find out if there were any new things in the mod that I was interested in using. So the next thing that I wanted to do, oh, and also when you pick up the mod on Nexus, if you go to the articles tab of the mod, there's uh, there's a whole bunch of files or articles on like where certain things are, rings are, spells, weapons. These aren't entirely accurate. They're fairly accurate. They're at least helpful to get started. These were created for the 2.0 version, and now we're on 2.1.4. So they have been some changes. So not all of these are accurate, but it's definitely a good place to start if you're trying to understand the world and the new items in it. But the real way to figure out where things are is to data mine the mod data files, the param files. And the way to do that is with Smithbox. And at the time that I'm writing this video, Smithbox is on version 2.1.2. Now, in this particular case, if you're using Secretfire 2.1.4, you don't need to unpack the data files. They're already unpacked when you load the mod. But if you're working on a mod that has packed data, you might have to use a data unpacker like witchybnd. And it's also available on GitHub. And at the time of this video, I was using version 3 of witchybnd. So what you want to do, let me go into Smithbox and first I'm gonna just delete my project. So project settings and delete. Okay, so what you want to do when you load up Smithbox is create a new project, and I'm going to call this Secret Fire, sorry, and it is a Dark Souls 2 Scholar type project. And I'm going to pick my project directory as my desktop in the SOF folder, and then I'm going to point it to my Secret Fire uh, game files. So that is on my computer. It's going to be PC, D, Steam Library, Apps, Common, Secret Fire, Game, and then Secret Fire _2. So this is my game folder. I want automatic loads, row name imports, and I'm only interested in the parameter editor. I don't care about the map editor or anything else, but if you want to play around with the maps, you can. But I just want to get the data out of the mod files to a CSV that I can use for a spreadsheet. Okay, so I'm going to create this, and then I'm going to go to row names and import community names all. I'm going to load all the names from the vanilla version. So I'm really interested in three different things here. Item param, which is a list of all the item IDs used in the game, and these are labeled according to the vanilla item IDs. And you'll see in the mod there, you'll see places where there is no vanilla name because the developer has added a new row for a new item, and he hasn't given any description for it. So you kind of have to figure this out for yourself. But all the vanilla names are here with the item IDs for vanilla. This doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get that exact same item in the mod with that item ID, but these are the vanilla names for these particular item IDs. Then we have item lot param2 character, which is a list of enemy drops and the items that they drop, and then item lot param2 other, which is a list of loot. So basically things that you'll find on corpses or in chests and things like that. But those are guaranteed items. And it can even be a reward for a certain quest finish, but they're guaranteed. It's not a random. Item character is random. Item other is guaranteed. So that's the two big differences there. Okay, so once I've got those, then I'm going to go to data, export CSV, all params, export all modified params to file, and I'm going to put these in a folder that I've created on my desktop, secret file, CSV. So I'm going to export all of these data param files to CSV files. And you can play with these. I've already got a search up here. I've got my search set up so that I can search the contents of items. So if I go to the CSV folder where I've extracted all of this data, I can say search for Staff of Wisdom, and I can see that Staff of Wisdom, the text Staff of Wisdom occurs in these CSV files. If I want to search for Sanctum Crossbow, oh wow, that exists in a lot of places. But anyway, you can find out rapier. Well, rapier's going to be in lots of places. Let's do Sunset Staff. Okay, and these are the places where the item Sunset Staff appears in the parameter files. So what I want to do now is grab these three files, item param2 other, and item param2 character, and then I want to load those into Google Sheets. So I've already done that here. Items is just a simple two-column spreadsheet where I have the item ID and item name. And again, there are going to be blanks here. Sorry about this. So there are going to be blanks here where the developer has created new items and has new item IDs. And we'll have to figure out what those are because they're not labeled. So then I've got the other two, loot, which is the guaranteed drops, and drops, which are the random drops from enemies. And here, what I like to do, let's take a look at drops. So if I bring in the drops table, the item param2 character, you'll see these 10 columns, item lot 0 through 9, that contain a list of item IDs for drops from enemies. So what I want to do is to create a character string, a new column here, column B, that's a concatenation of all of those columns. And then I'm going to copy that. Oops, let's go this way. Copy that into all my columns. And then I'm going to paste values only. paste special values only to get rid of the string concatenation. Um, and now I don't need these columns over here. I can get rid of them. And delete those. Now, the column, when you bring in the CSV file, this was the second column name that's called name. This is actually the vanilla names for the drops. So I'm going to relabel that vanilla. And then what I like to do on all of my sheets is add a data filter. This makes it really easy to slice and dice the data. And I'll resize this. And that's too big. Let me resize this down. I don't need it that big. That's good enough. Okay, so let's look, for example, Staff of Wisdom. A Staff of Wisdom was a drop from a mimic in Brightstone Cove. Let me unhighlight that so it's easier to read. So, dropped by a mimic, and in addition to the staff, he also dropped the dark leggings. And in the new mod, he drops this new ID, 352. I'm going to copy that, go to my names, my items column, and search for that. And you'll see that this item that the mimic now drops is some kind of item probably related to hexes because it's a new item number that follows Dark Dance. And it's within the same range as hexes. We're not quite into the ring numbers yet. So that's probably going to be some kind of a hex, new hex spell in the mod. So we'll come back to that later. So I did the same thing with loot. I concatenated everything that was on a corpse or in a chest into the string, and then I added a filter to the table, and again I renamed the name column. I called it vanilla just so I know that that's actually what was in the vanilla version. So for example, the Rat King, if you kill the Rat King in vanilla, you get a Ferris's Lockstone and a rat tail. It's not necessarily, in fact, I know it's not what you get in the mod, but we'll figure out what you get in the mod later. I mean, we can take these IDs if we want to find out right now. Copy this, go to my items, and find. So, okay, so you do get a Ferris Lockstone. What about the rat tail? Let's see if that's still a rat tail. Items, find, and it is still, okay, so it is the same. So that particular case, it's the exact same item in the mod that you got in the vanilla version. But many things are not. So now that I've got these tables loaded, let's think about how we would use them to prepare planning a route. So one of the things that I want to do if I'm going to route is I need to understand how easy it is for me to get Twinkling Titanite versus Titanite slabs, because that's going to determine how quickly I can get an upgraded weapon. So if I search for Twinkling and take this number, this item ID, and then go check my loot table. Now that I've got my data filter in, what I can do is go to loot and do filter condition, and then text contains, and then that value of Twinkling Titanite. And this will filter down my rows so I can get a good count of how much twinkling I can get. So this tells me where I can get twinkling. So by far the best area for twinkling, yeah, if I look at these areas, Elian Lois is pretty good, but I know from experience with this mod, it's going to take a while to get to Elian Lois. Broom Tower is not too hard to get to, and there are 10 pieces of twinkling there, so that's pretty good amount of twinkling. And I can see the total. I can get close to upgrading 3 full weapons with twinkling. So now let's compare that to Titanite slabs. And go to my loot. I'm trying not to rely on drops from enemies, so that's why I'm looking at the loot table versus the drops table. So I'm going to go to my loot column and text contains, and then the ID for Titanite slab. Okay, and you can see like right away, there's much fewer cases of Titanite slab. Of course, Titanite slab is the last upgrade material for a +10, so it's not like I don't need the same quantity of Titanite slabs as I do twinkling. So it's kind of apples and oranges, but I just want to get a feel for how quickly I could get a Titanite slab. So this is a reward from siding with Pate and Creighton fighting in Brightstone Cove, and that's not too late in the game. But in order to get this, interaction, you'd have to do all of Pate and Creighton's side quests. So that makes it just too difficult. The Mofano in Drangleic Castle, that's not too bad. I do have to kill the Demon of Song in order to get the Ring of the Key of the Embedded, so that I can let the Melfanito go. So that's not too terribly bad. And then Royal Navalin, this is in just before you get to Dragon Airy, and that's the where you normally get Unleashed Magic, which would be the 4th part of his quest. That's kind of late game. Company of Champions, no. Dragon Airy, no. Drangleic Castle, this is the easiest and probably the first one to get. This is the rooftop chest in Drangleic Castle above where in vanilla you would find the 2 dragon priestesses shooting you with flame. So that's not too bad. That would be my first chance of getting a guaranteed Titanite slab. So I'm going to lean toward, if I'm going to plan a route, I'm going to lean toward twinkling, because there's much easier ways to get twinkling early on and get my weapon upgraded to +5 with twinkling. So let's see. One other thing I want to look at is let's go to the top first. Rapier. Oh wait. Oh yeah, I gotta go this way. Rapier is one of the favored weapons to use in a run. So I'm just gonna find where that might exist. Not chaos, but regular rapier. So here's the item ID. And of course, it's the same as in vanilla. So I'm going to check the loot table and find out where that is. And text contains. Okay, so this says Forest of Fallen Giants. In vanilla, this would be where the Hawk Ring was in Forest of Fallen Giants. However, I know from playing the mod for many hours, the developer has moved this particular corpse. So it's not, so normally the Hawk Ring would be found by dropping down into the salamander pit area below the Cardinal Tower bonfire. But I know that he's moved that corpse and the associated treasure out into the area outside the Cardinal Tower, close to where you would find the fire longsword, where you have all the little soldiers out in the little kind of courtyard forest area outside of the Cardinal Tower. But anyway, it is available early game. So that was one of the weapons that I chose to route with. So anyway, that's how I pull the data into spreadsheets using Smithbox and load it into Google Sheets and concatenate the columns that are important to me with the item IDs, and then use that information to decide what the world looks like in the mod. So thanks for watching.